Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business-focused podcast covering all things tech, engineering and innovation. Hosted by me, Chris Broome, a huge tech, motorsport and gaming fan, and also the owner of Longhurst, a firm of lifestyle financial planners and independent financial advisors located in Silverstone, Northamptonshire. This is a series of unscripted and unpolished conversations with leading business owners, thought leaders and high-tech talent where we discuss their experiences within the Silverstone business and motorsport region. We will also be asking them to share their knowledge, insight and their thoughts on the future just for you. If you're looking to learn more about the Silverstone high growth region and commercially connect with like-minded peers, you've definitely come to the right place. Welcome to Inside Silverstone. Good morning and welcome to the next episode of Inside Silverstone. My name is Chris Broome and I am your host. Today I am delighted to introduce to all of you Mike Dempsey from Claytex. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris.
Mike, what I'd like to do before we get into the main bulk of the interview, as we're doing with everybody that comes on the show, is just run through your CV, if that's okay, just so that I can, basically introduce why we've asked you to come on to the show. So okay. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And I've got all this information, as I always do, off Google and LinkedIn. So if anything is incorrect, just let me know. And certainly if I pronounce anything incorrectly, definitely correct me. Okay. And so that everybody that's listening understands. So you, from an educational perspective, you went to Loughborough University where you got an automotive engineering degree. Yeah. And then you went straight out into industry. And so over a sort of 3-4 year period, you worked for both Ford Motor Company, where you were a performance and performance engineer. Yeah. And then you also then worked for the Rover Group where you worked as a simulation engineer. Yeah. And then in 2000 up until present day, you then basically left and set up your own business, initially as a sort of consultancy business and then further called Claytex, where you are currently managing director and a simulation specialist.
Yep, that's right.
That sounds about right.
Yep.
Cool. So for the benefit of all of our listeners and also myself, respectfully, who are Claytex? What is it that you do? What do you specialise in? And then in relation to the sort of Daimler software that I've read about, what is that? And sort of your journey as a business for being involved in that.
Okay, so Claytex is an engineering consultancy and software developer, and what we do really is all focused around automotive modelling and simulation. Okay. And the core product for the bulk of the life of Claytex has been Daimler, which is a tool for modelling all of the different systems inside the vehicle. So it's multi-domain. It covers the mechanics, the fluid systems, the electrical systems, the control systems, and allows us to put together the physics of how the car is going to behave so that we can start to study how it's going to accelerate, how it's going to corner, how the air conditioning system is going to work, how the battery is going to work in harmony with everything else in the car, and start to look at that overall system performance. And so as Claytex, we started off doing consulting work in this area. We then became distributors of Daimler in around 2003. Okay. And then we started to build our own application libraries on top of Daimler to help people more easily apply it to model their engines or model their suspensions, and turn that into our own products that we're now selling.
Okay, and so Daimler presumably was produced by another organisation way ahead of you taking distribution rights in 2003. Is that right?
Yeah. So Daimler started in Sweden in '92. Okay. And at the point where I first encountered it, I was working at Rover in about '98. Okay. And at that point, there were 4 guys in Sweden that were creating this tool, and it was just fundamentally different to everything else that was on the market. Offered a really nice way to build up the models, much more intuitive to build the physics of how things were going to be used. By that point, it had already been adopted by Toyota and applied to simulate and model the first Prius, right? So they could understand how that powertrain needed to work.
Great.
So yeah, it was this little tool coming from Sweden, and in 2003, we basically asked them, can we be your distributor? We've been working with it for 4 or 5 years now. We understand it quite well, and they agreed. And then in 2006, Daimler was actually acquired by Dassault Systèmes, and it's become part of their CATIA brand, and is fully integrated into all of the solutions that Dassault offers now.
Okay, which is great. And presumably, when you did and when you took up distribution rights, that helped you have a bit of a niche in the UK market, presumably, and potentially even globally, or just nationally.
So we started off just nationally, and yes, it was quite a specialist tool. There were a few of us through the work we'd done at Rover that had become exposed to it and knew a little bit about it early on, and then as obviously Rover started to break up, is that the right way to put it? In the early 2000s, those people dispersed to various different organisations, and the information about Daimler started to spread. But yeah, it was a fairly niche application that we started to see being introduced into a few companies in a few specialised ways.
And so presumably it was designed predominantly for sort of road vehicles, but does it also have a place with sort of motorsport, UK or nationally or globally?
Yeah, so Daimler itself is actually fundamentally very generic, and some of the biggest customers are actually companies like EDF, the energy giant from France.
Okay.
But our area of application has always been automotive and motorsport.
Right.
You know, basically my background as an automotive engineer, that's what I knew. That's where I can go and talk to people and show them what they can do with it. And motorsport was some of the earliest adopters, particularly in Formula One, where I think it was 2003, 2004, we got our first F1 customer. And particularly in motorsport, it's really grown from there. So we now supply teams in Formula One, in NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula E, and it's also being used by some of those organisations in all sorts of other race series as well.
Wow. Okay. And so, from appreciating the Claytex, the genesis of Claytex started in sort of 2000. So by sort of 2003, 2004, perhaps you had started working with F1 teams.
Yeah.
As a bit of a petrol head. Now, what was that like?
Well, I mean, that was great because I've been an F1 fan forever myself. So to actually then suddenly get to work with these guys and see what goes on and actually go to the factories, it was incredibly exciting and really good to get that access. Yeah. And actually, I now find that I'm a bit blasé about it. That you see all these people clamoring to win competitions to go and visit the factories of these Formula One teams, and you think,
I've done all that.
But getting that opportunity was great, and being able to work with those guys and pushing our understanding of what we can do with Daimler, as well as helping them, achieve their goals on the track. Really interesting to be able to do that.
So I guess so part of their success, however minute or otherwise or big, is in part down to obviously the systems and software that they're using to develop the cars.
I really like to think so. Yes.
Of course, absolutely. Well, congratulations. It sounds that's absolutely fantastic. And what other? So you've mentioned in the explanation of what Daimler is, you've spoken about the production of a library of applications that clients of yours can obviously access. And so I've read on your website, and I can't pronounce it correctly, so you will do that for me. But this is to do with the vehicle systems modelling and analysis sort of tools. Is it Vesma?
Vesma.
So talk to us about
that. So this is a product that we've created really has come together in the last, I guess, 2 or 3 years. But some of the foundations for what it does go back more like 10 years to some of the very earliest application libraries we started to develop for Daimler. And the goal was really to be able to provide people with toolboxes that will give them 80% of what they want their vehicle model to be out of the box. So they're not having to repeat all the basic steps of how to build a vehicle model and what the architecture should be, and how to define, if you're racing in Formula One, or in fact any open wheel series, how to define a double wishbone suspension and make it work efficiently. All of that we can provide as part of the Vesima suite. So then you can actually focus on adding in the details into the model where you as an organization can make a difference. So in motorsport, that's looking at the dampers, the springs, the anti-roll, anti-heave, all the other little bits and pieces that they have in the suspension that make the cars unique. That's where they can focus their effort, and everything else can be part of the core Vesima suite, and they're just needing to build on it. And the goal was really, trying to provide that foundation to make it much more accessible to a wider group of users and of engineers, so that they can, I suppose, tap into the power of what Daimler can do with and make it, ultimately make it easier for them.
And so you're, so the people and the sort of customers that you're sort of targeting presumably are sort of automotive manufacturers, as you said, race teams, as it were. Any other type of sort of customer that can benefit from using these types of systems?
Yeah, so we have customers actually in the OEMs, in the tier one suppliers, and in the motorsport teams.
Yeah.
And so anyone that's trying to build part of a vehicle system where they need to see how it's going to interact with other things in the vehicle, that's where Daimler can really help. Because we can provide application libraries as part of the Vesima suite that cover all of the different things that are going to go into your vehicle, whether it's the air conditioning system, the cooling system, a fuel cell, a battery. There are libraries that cover all of this. And so you can pull all of that in, and then you can start to focus on your technology, the piece that you're really working on, invest your time and effort into that part of the model and see how it's going to interact with everything else that needs to go around it to form a full vehicle.
Got it.
And make sure that what you think the system is going to deliver is actually what it will deliver in reality. Yeah. And
presumably that's also for for electric hybrid vehicles and presumably also sort of autonomous vehicles. So what's your sort of thoughts on autonomous vehicles, and not necessarily regarding your software specifically, but actually sort of the future of that? Any sort of opinion? And specifically regarding things like safety?
Yeah, I think with autonomous vehicles, they're coming. That seems to, everyone is investing massively in doing it. So they're going to arrive, and the question is, how do we prove they're safe before we let them free to roam around on the streets? Because all the autonomous vehicles that are running at the moment have a safety driver there to make sure that that driver can take control when the vehicle doesn't detect something or doesn't do something it's supposed to. The goal is what they call level 5 autonomy, where there won't even be a steering wheel, there won't be any pedals in the car. You have no possibility of taking control.
Right.
So how do we get there?
Yeah, how do we?
That's a good question. So there's been lots of research about what is the roadmap to get there. One group of researchers said that you would need to drive a vehicle 5 billion miles.
Wow.
To be able to say that it's experienced all of the strange edge cases that are out there in the world and all the different traffic conditions and weather conditions, to be able to say that it's safe and to say that it's safer than a human driver.
Yes.
Which is the ultimate goal. But 5 billion miles is just not achievable because you change a line of code, you change a piece of hardware, you have to start the whole process again. So that's not going to work as a physical test. What we need to have is a mix of field tests like are running today, proving ground tests where we can set up controlled scenarios, and then simulation will have to be used to really explore the full breadth of scenarios. So there will need to be this mix where you have simulation, proving ground, and field tests, and the simulation must be able to recreate exactly what happens in the field tests and the proving ground, so you can have confidence in your simulation to extrapolate from that and take the system into a much broader range of scenarios.
And do Claytex offer any type of solution or product or suite of that a business can or a designer can basically do this and test and?
Yeah, so we're building all of this around a tool called RF Pro, which originates from doing driving simulation, and actually the first customers were in motorsport, in Formula One.
Okay.
But now most of the customers, the majority of the business is actually with vehicle OEMs. Mm-hmm. And I think the real growth area is into being able to simulate these autonomous vehicles. Why we're using RF Pro is that it provides really high-end graphics. So the feeds that we can generate for cameras as well as for the humans involved look great. Mm-hmm. But also it has really accurate real-world models. So they have mapped most race circuits, a lot of proving grounds, and hundreds of kilometers of real-world roads out there. Okay. And all of those models are mapped to a very high level of precision. So the driving surface is usually at least a 1 centimeter grid resolution with sub-millimeter precision in the Z direction.
Right.
And they're using physics to determine how light will reflect off materials and using the material properties to look at how that will be different for different types of material. So there's a lot of capability in that tool to allow us to then immerse an AI processor, AI software into a virtual environment. And what Claytex is doing is building the sensor models that go into this. So building in LiDAR models, radar models, ultrasound models, so that we can connect the RF Pro environment to the AI software. And also looking at developing the test automation tools that will allow us to take in tens or hundreds of thousands of different driving scenarios and automatically test and measure the performance of the vehicle. And the development of that is going to happen through Innovate UK funded projects that we're about to start. Yeah. So working with several other partners, we will be developing all of these capabilities over the next couple of years.
And for those listening that aren't aware of what Innovate UK is, what is it and why have you chosen to be part of it?
So Innovate UK is, I guess it's a UK government funding body. I forget actually which department of the government it is now. But they run competitions where you can, as a consortium, so you have to be a collaborative research project, you can put in a proposal to say, we want to do this, and the project is going to cost X million pounds. Please, can we have some funding to help us with this? And so depending on the size of your business and the competition, they will award different amounts of funding. Okay. And so one of these projects that we're starting is response to a competition run by the Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles, which is another government department, but the funding comes through Innovate UK. And they ran a whole competition on modelling and simulation, or developing modelling and simulation capabilities for autonomous vehicles. And we were successful in winning that competition. Great. Well, congratulations. Thank you. And congratulations also, because the one of the sort of motivators for getting you on was that I saw on LinkedIn, because we're connected on LinkedIn, I saw that Tech Magazine CIO Review nominated you guys as sort of top 10 most promising Dassault System solution providers, which is obviously in partnership with the sort of 3D experience platform. Is that right? That was that was earlier this summer. Sure. And so that's quite an achievement to be nominated for that. Yeah, well, congratulations. As I said, it sort of sparked my interest, and I started reading up on exactly what you guys did, and thought, well, we have to get you on the podcast. So thank you again for coming on, and thank you for that amount of information. That's regarding obviously what Claytex do, your niche areas, and how you can and how you are, but how you can obviously assist members within sort of the Silverstone region and clearly further afield. Yeah. Bringing this in to talk about Silverstone, if that's okay. So, podcast is called Inside Silverstone, and we're sat in the Innovation Centre on Silverstone Park at the moment. We're both our businesses, so my business Longhurst and your business Claytex. So we are members of the Silverstone Technology Cluster. So that's STC for short. When did you guys join the STC? So we joined STC about a year ago.
Okay.
And what we saw, I think, through this cluster was an opportunity to connect with other tech businesses that are doing similar or related things that maybe we weren't aware of otherwise. And so it's those opportunities to meet other people that really brought us in. And so things like the annual conference that they've run, the special interest groups that they're setting up, those are the things that I think for us are, appealing, allowing us to make additional connections with people, talk about what we do, learn about what other people are doing. And maybe it will lead to extra collaborations. That's hopefully what we're looking for, really.
And you're happy so far? You think it's been even though it's relatively new for you having joined, it's been an initial success? You've presumably made new connections and new friends.
Yeah. So far, I'm happy to have started to. Happy that we started to take part of and be involved with the Silverstone Technology Cluster. I have become one of the what they call a SIG champions, so the special interest groups for the CAE SIG. I'm now one of the champions, so together with 3 other guys, we're organising that group.
So what is that group? So just for our benefit of our listeners?
So it's very broad. It's just the CAE SIG is what we call it. So it's really covering all different aspects of computer-aided engineering. So from a Claytex point of view, we look at what you would term systems engineering. There are also people involved in organising it that focus on CFD, on FEA. And so we're just trying to get the group going, to talk about all these different aspects of CAE, get dialogue going, understand what each other can do, where there might be synergies, where there might be things we can learn from one another.
So what's the next event that you're running as a group?
The next event is on the 25th of September, and the focus for this one is more on looking at how you verify your simulation that you're doing, whatever type of simulation that might be.
Okay.
How you're securing data, what are the perhaps concerns around using cloud systems, and looking at that kind of side of the CAE. So rather than delving into how do you do CFD or FEA, it's more how do you build confidence that the people that you're working with are doing the right thing and taking care of your data in the right way.
Well, the good thing is for STC members is that they can attend these events at no cost, can't they? So I think you get one ticket. And interestingly, I am actually booked in to come to it as well. So to further my knowledge, even though specifically as a chartered financial planner, it might not be a certain topic that's relative to our business, but you don't know. And so very much looking forward to that. And presumably you'll all be up talking. Presumably there'll be a sort of short piece from each of you regarding a certain topic or.
Yeah. So I think Rob Lewis and Rob Rousel are presenting. So Rob Lewis from Total Sim, Rob Rousel from Worth, and then there's guest speakers coming in. At this event, I'm not particularly doing a presentation as such. I think I will end up with a compare role on this one.
Sure, fine. Okay, good. Well, I look forward to coming to that, and I think actually in due time it'd be good to get those guys on the podcast as well. So that'll be great. And actually, importantly, for further reassurance for people that are listening and potentially considering, joining the STC, you're not physically based yourself, and your business isn't physically based on site. You're based up in Leamington.
That's right.
Is that right? Yeah. But obviously, you spend time on site working with clients and obviously other industry peers that you meet through being part of Silverstone, which is great. And what I'm asking everybody to do, if it's possible, so for folk that are potentially considering coming into the region commercially, so they currently run a business outside of Silverstone, certainly not part of the technology cluster, but they're considering coming in one sentence, if we could try and get it into sort of a nutshell, why should they come here? Why should they become a fellow member alongside both of our firms within the cluster?
Well, I think what we have within the cluster are a lot of high technology companies, a lot of them growing very rapidly. So that presents a lot of opportunity. And I think the Silverstone brand is something that's recognized worldwide. Yeah. So being part or having some association with that can also help build that image of high tech, high technology.
Great. So message there is it will help the business, potentially, grow, attract more clients, more customers.
Yeah, I think giving you more of a more global visibility through being part of it.
And so have you? And so presumably, because just coming up on something you mentioned, probably 10 minutes ago, within F1, but you also have secured and work alongside American-based sort of motorsport. So you're involved in sort of NASCAR. And so do you think for other businesses, potentially coming into the Silverstone region, that could help them sort of globally, not just sort of nationally? You think globally it could help them sort of expand?
I think so. I mean, particularly, I would say, especially if you're interested in getting into motorsport, being associated with Silverstone, would seem to be a logical thing to do. But I think it's not only about motorsport. There's so many things that spin out from that, so many technologies that have started in motorsport and are related to it, that it will give you that extra bit of opportunity to be seen on a global scale.
Yeah, and also partner with a lot of businesses. There's sort of 4,500 businesses associated with Silverstone Park, and sort of 80 plus associated with the Silverstone Technology Clusters. So, exciting opportunities.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. What I would love to do, if that's okay, in the sort of latter part of this interview, is just talk just a little bit about you. This is the awkward moment there, where the spotlight's on Mike. Okay, right. And I can see you squirming in your seat right now. Yeah. But the point of this is to, certainly for aspiring business owners and business leaders, and maybe even the next generation who are thinking about sort of coming into this profession and this industry, as it were, whether it be tech, engineering, innovation, high growth, whatever it is. I just really wanted to share, just in a nutshell, a bit of a story. Your story, your background, and sort of your journey to date. And so you were sort of born and raised initially and lived in and around sort of Halifax area, as it were, and then following your sort of graduation from Loughborough, you then went to work for Ford down in Essex.
Yeah, that's right.
And then following that, then moved to Leamington.
Yes. So when I moved to work for Rover, I was going to be based at the Gaydon site.
Okay.
And decided that Leamington was a nice place to come and live. And that was 20 years ago, and still quite happy living in Leamington. It's a nice place.
Yeah. And so presumably sort of married, family.
Yeah.
Kids obviously go to school there.
Yeah, the youngest one just starts actually next week.
Okay.
So she's all excited.
Sure.
It's kind of it's a big thing, isn't it?
Oh, of course.
So she was trying on school uniform yesterday and getting all excited by it.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, obviously good luck to her. So, so from your, what I'm really interested to understand a bit more actually is clearly, doing a degree in automotive engineering, and then obviously becoming a simulation specialist, and, the phenomenal work you're doing, clearly, with businesses you work alongside. Was there what was the sort of spark, the genesis of I'm interested in engineering, or you mentioned previously being a bit of an F1 fan? Do you have an early memory? Was there a sort of trigger that helped sort of stimulate this as an interest?
I think it really would go back to, I guess, coming from my dad. That his first jobs were engineering, but by the time I came along, he was a physics teacher.
Okay.
But I suppose I always remember that from an early age we'd be out the back of the house fiddling with the car, because 40 years ago they didn't work that well, and they were always having to be fixed.
Yeah.
If he wasn't fiddling with a car, he was fiddling with a bike.
Right.
And then I suppose things like technical Lego and things like that, building stuff with him out of that.
Yeah, Meccano, stuff like that.
Yeah. And so I suppose I got interested in all of that from quite an early age. And then logically for me, it just seemed like, right, well, I'm interested in cars. I don't really want to be hands-on fixing them, but I'm interested in how they work and how we make them work. So then going off to university and doing a degree in engineering, and for me specifically automotive engineering, seemed like a good way to go. And then from that, it was going to work for Ford and starting to do simulation work. It was that first job at Ford.
And here we are.
Yeah.
2018, successful business, working in and around motorsport.
Yeah.
in and out of their garages and their and their development sites, as you've said earlier. Which is an absolute privilege, but ultimately you've earned the right to be there because you're delivering huge value through the service you're delivering and continue to deliver. So bravo to that. One thing we're definitely keen to try and sort of promote on Inside Silverstone as a podcast is potential business lessons that our guests have learned. Where ranging from either sort of embarrassing ones that have had a sort of pivotal moment in their sort of business or personal life, or just down to sort of just generic business lessons. And so what I'd be really, really keen to understand, certainly with the sort of size of your business, which I think sort of 15 employees.
Yeah, so it's 14 people here in the UK, one based down in South Africa, and 3 over in the US.
Okay, fine. So it's serious. You've got payroll, you've got bills to pay. It's presumably business probably started at home, I guess, did it? And then then it evolved
in the
into
spare bedroom for the first few years.
Okay.
And then, sort of had a contractor a little bit while I was still working primarily from home to help fill in some things. But then, taking that first step of I need someone full time, I need an office, and growing and building it from there.
Got very real.
Yes.
And as a small business owner, what bit of wisdom, what pearl of advice could you provide any of our listeners that are either considering opening a company or part of an existing, their own business at the moment that's still growing? Anything that you think would be, key for you?
I guess probably the key bit is when you're recruiting people, you've got to find people that are going to fit into the way that you operate and into a small company. So they need to be people that are going to be independent, that you can give them the goals that you want them to achieve and they will just get on with it. You definitely don't want someone that you're going to have to micromanage and check what they're doing every half an hour, because it's just draining and you will not make progress.
Okay.
So it's really being careful about finding the right people to come in and help you and take things forward.
Great. Okay. Yeah, fantastic piece of advice there. Certainly highly valuable for everybody listening. So thank you so much for that. We're coming to the close of the interview. So again, thank you so much for coming on. And hopefully in due time we can bring you back on. Potentially next year. So sort of aim for 2019, just to see how your projects are going, and I would hope that you've been in the press again because you're winning other awards, presumably. Who knows? But
let's hope so.
but we can find out, and certainly love to touch base. One thing that we're closing off, and I'm closing off all interviews with, is, again, purely because just for selfish reasons, because I'm the host and I get to ask the questions, is whether it be profound wisdom, something fun, or something serious. What bit of advice could you give me, Chris Broome, from anything that you've learned sort of throughout your life as a sort of family man or a business owner, or any otherwise?
Good question. I guess the most important thing is that whatever you're doing, whether you're working for someone else or you're setting up your own business, you've got to be doing something that you enjoy, because you spend so much time at work that if you don't enjoy it, do something else. Because there's nothing worse than having a job where there's no interest for you and you're just bored out of your mind. Unfortunately, I've been there, and so I very much don't want to end up in that position again. You need to enjoy what you're doing, and then I think you've also got to make time for the family. That you might be starting a business. It takes a hell of a lot of time to do that, but you've got to make time to be with the family and make sure that they're looked after as well.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal advice. Very, very good advice, because I think I can resonate. I think we've all probably worked in or worked for people or in businesses that have been draining for one reason or another. Either not being stimulated enough or not being led. Because the inability for those people to manage or whatever it is.
No opportunity to grow or just to progress yourself. Yeah.
And I think the family piece, I think my partner, if she ever listens to these, which she probably won't, but if you do, Louise, absolutely, it's all about making sure that we take time off and spend time together and switch the phone off. The worst thing for me is having my phone on all the time. It's even my clients and families know they can get hold of me pretty frequently, so just to try and get in the discipline of turning it off.
It's for me, I've still got young kids.
Sure.
As I say, the youngest is just about to start school. It's you get home and it's just sit on the floor and play with whatever game she wants to play. Spending a bit of time with her.
Magical moments though. So again, fantastic. Fantastic bit of wisdom there, Mike. So thank you. So cool. Right. So that's basically the end of the interview. So for everyone listening, what we'll do is within the show notes, we will leave we'll leave some links to Mike's business and any other links Mike thinks quite useful for those to gain information or learn a bit more about what they do. And what we'll also be doing as we do at the sort of end of the each podcast is ask everybody to leave us a sort of 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Certainly those that are involved in the sort of Silverstone region, it's really important that everybody does leave us a review, because it helps push us up the podcast listening, which means that not only do we've got a higher probability of people in the UK listening to this, but we've also got sort of globally a bigger opportunity, especially because of the sort of Silverstone regional name. So Mike, again, thank you so much for coming on. Let's hope that we can get you on again maybe next year, if that's good.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll take it from there.
Thanks, Chris.
Mike, thanks.
The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst for the benefit of those with a passion for all things tech, engineering and innovation. For more information, please visit longhurst.co.uk/Inside Silverstone, whilst also remembering to give us a 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Please note that neither Chris Broome or Longhurst work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Circuit or Silverstone Technology Cluster.